What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the NBA Hardwood Show here on the Run Pure Sports YouTube channel. It's opening day eve, but we do have a big NBA slate to talk about on this Wednesday afternoon. 10 games on the DraftKings slate, and I think probably the most extensive injury list of the entire season so far. Now, I'm sure it will be topped, in the weeks to come as NBA winds down, but a lot to talk about certainly on this 10-game slate. We got Big T, we got Mangone. I'm Draft Cheat on my last NBA show of the season. Baseball focused coming up tomorrow. Excited for that. But one more night in the NBA streets, at least on the show for me. I'll be tailing the cores and all that stuff going forward. Big T, we'll go to you first. How you doing on this Wednesday afternoon?
Excellent. I am ready to get back into baseball tomorrow, get back into college hoops tomorrow. With the good thing about not many upsets last weekend in the college streets, we're going to have some really good games this weekend. With a lot of people like upsets early in the tournament, which are fun. I mean, everyone likes a good upset, but it also makes these round of games worse because you got bad teams in there. This year, though, all the 1s and 2s have moved on. Mostly the 3s, 4s, 5s are in there too. I think there's only, an 11 seed and a 6 seed or something like that moved on. So we're going to get some really good games and a full weekend of baseball. Obviously, NBA is still going. MMA is still going, which we love. Well, everyone except Mangone loves. Lots of stuff going on at Run Pure, like always. Can't wait to dive into baseball. Tomorrow, I got a special request out to put me on the show with DC tomorrow to start things out. I don't know if my boss, JSU, will let that happen. But hopefully I'm looking at DC's mug tomorrow on the show at 2 p.m. or whenever we go live.
I think it's 1 p.m. The two of the first three MLB games. So there was a 3-game early slate, but 2 of the first 3 games got postponed already. Braves and Phillies and Mets and Brewers. So that slate is gone. So it'll be just kind of the main slate that we kick it off with. I think that starts at 3 Eastern time. Anyway, we'll figure it out. I'll be there for sure on the show, whether it's Big T, someone else. We'll have a good crew ready to break down baseball. I'm about to fire a lot of props into our betting prop channel after the show. Almost have that list going. And, yeah, very ready for the start of MLB.
I'm going to set that sheet up for you tonight, too. I need to put it on my list. But if you buy the baseball-only package at Run Pure, you're going to get all of DC's bets, all of JBC's bets. Whoever puts baseball bets up, Stats, I think, will have some baseball bets. But it won't just be the bets package. If you just want only baseball, you want DC's pitcher takes, you want Mangone's late slate stuff that we're going to start doing, you want anything, prices, third and schlongs, cash stuff, everything in the baseball. If you only like baseball, we're going to have that covered for you. Now, obviously, you can still get the overall package with Saber Sim. That's what you should get. But if you only like baseball, sign up, and we're going to include the bets this year too. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah, beginning of the year, oftentimes my best baseball months of the year, I think, especially right out of the gate, people not following quite as closely as I do. And I think some betting lines and also just pricing is quite a bit off for the start of baseball season. So looking forward to that. Mangone, we'll bring you in here. I know it's kind of hard for you not to talk for a full 5 minutes, but you managed to do it. How you doing on this Wednesday afternoon?
I hold receipts, and this is bullshit. Tony just throwing a UFC stray in there out of nowhere. It is bullshit every week, Tony. Every week there's a fight you guys complain about, so I don't want to hear it. But anyways, I do want to talk about MLB because I'm pretty excited about the MLB season coming around. Also, we have sadly can't say last year's, but former FWBC champion, Tony. There's a $15 tomorrow, and it's 73% full. Get in there now. I know you don't sign up for your slates ahead of time. Get in there now.
They missized the opening day that poorly that it's 73% full already.
It's for the $15 for a qualifier. So get in there now. I want to let you know. Get in now. So I want to see you back with the belt on your shoulder once again. So $15 only. They don't always have those, and this is only on FanDuel, not DraftKings, but they don't have the $15 that often. So if you want to take a shot at trying to get the belt like Tony did, get in there now. So yeah, excited about that. I'm excited for the baseball season. Tony mentioned we're going to have a lot of late slate content for you guys this year. As you can tell, DK has really shifted the way that they're doing a lot of the slate. So instead of my single entry 3 max stuff, you're going to get late slate stuff, and I'll be covering that. We'll have main slate as well. I'm sure, obviously, again, you can use the content that DC talks about, and I'll be using that content on the late slate as well. So I am very much excited for the baseball season. I had a pretty good season last year, and I'll admit, past seasons I struggled in baseball, and I'm excited to kind of get after it. It should be a really fun season, and I'm going to try to hold the belt like Tony did 2 years ago. So excited for that.
Mangon's coming for your belt, Tony. Watch out. With that, let's get into this NBA slate. We got a lot to talk about. 10 games, injuries galore. So obviously, some of these games are difficult to break down just because we have, in a lot of them, kind of not a great idea of who's going to play and who's not. But that's always kind of the case for NBA. We'll do our best to give you the if-then scenarios, all that stuff. We will start, as we always do, with the first listed DraftKings game on the slate. It is the Brooklyn Nets at the Washington Wizards. Brooklyn favored by 3.5 in this one, 220 total. Out for the Nets, Cam Johnson, Dennis Smith Jr. Questionable is Cam Thomas. And then for the Wizards, going to be without Tyus Jones, Umiori, Landry Shamet. Looks like Kyle Kuzma, who missed last game, will be back in there tonight, as will Denny Avdia. So, yeah, Wizards were very shorthanded in their last game, but those guys back in there tonight. We start with your favorite team, Mangone, the Washington Wizards, Brooklyn Nets. Kind of an ugly game here. What do you got for us, Wizards and Nets?
Yeah, definitely a terrible basketball team, and a team that will still beat the UConn Huskies, DC, despite what people were saying on Twitter. They beat the Bulls the other night. They can beat the UConn Huskies, but I think you have to like some Washington Wizards here. Denny Avdia, I know he got that late scratch the other day, or scratch kind of. It wasn't after the lock, but he's still a good play here. Kuzma's a good play. Poole's a good play. All these guys are good plays, in my opinion. Between Bagley and Holmes, it just depends who's the starter. Play whichever one you want there. Bench guys, be careful with them. I think that's a really easy way to say it with Washington. I just don't trust those bench guys when they have these three in. The Brooklyn Nets side of the ball, I talked about it the other day. I do not trust the Brooklyn Nets right now. I do not trust Mikal Bridges at 7.1K. I don't trust Nicholas Claxton. The way I would handle the Brooklyn Nets, it's pretty simple. The expensive guys, I would set max on them or just like barely get any of them. And I would mix and match the cheap options. I know Lonnie Walker was big chalk that busted the other day and people were frustrated by it. You know what Kevin Ollie said the other day, DC? I told you, the Holy Spirit speaks to him, and the Holy Spirit does what it does. I don't know what to tell you. That's what Kevin Ollie, that's how he coaches. I don't trust these Nets. I wouldn't mind setting a max of 1 or even 2 on them. It just depends how much value they have. Obviously, if they have a lot of value, open it up. Like if Wilson starts, right, then I'd probably be at 2. But I would just be cautious with these Nets, and I'd be cautious with the Wizards as well. I really only like the Wizards spends, and I really only like the Nets cheap options, pending on who is going to start. The other guy that I'll mention, lastly on the Nets, I think Dennis Schroeder, with the type of minutes he's getting, he's very hard to ignore and feel safe, but there could just be better guards on this slate. He's still 6.3K. It's hard to trust these expensive Nets options.
Any losing baseball bets or bad pitcher recommendations? I'm going to blame on the Holy Spirit this year. He spoke to me and it didn't work out. So don't come crying to me if those plays don't work out. Big T, what about you? Brooklyn Nets, Washington Wizards. What do you got?
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting slate. I can't remember if we were talking about it before the show or on the show, but so many injury news that we're kind of waiting on. And the good part is, at least on DK, it only goes till 8 p.m. tonight. Is FanDuel longer, Mangone?
FanDuel, I think, is pretty similar. So it's a long night overall. If anything, FanDuel could be shorter because it's that
shorter than 8 p.m.
Yeah, I'm saying shorter than because DK is longer because they have that big millie tonight. Yeah, no, FanDuel is.
It only goes till 8 p.m. on DK though. It can't be shorter.
It's only an hour long on DK. It's shorter than that.
Yeah. No, what I'm saying is everything's 10 games. Like literally everything's 10 games.
Okay, so everything's done at 8 p.m. tonight,
yes.
Which I like, which makes it a little easier to get news. I mean, we might not have all of it by 7, but guys like Dennis Schroeder against Washington. I mean, Washington is, if not the worst team, definitely one of the worst teams. So bad. Guy like Schroeder's been getting more minutes. I know he hasn't quite shown the upside, but 37 minutes, 34, mid-30s a bunch, 42 minutes one game. That might have been overtime. I can't remember. But bunch of big minutes. I mean, if he's playing 35 plus minutes against Washington, he's going to be one of my favorite plays of the slate, especially if Cam Thomas, I think he's still questionable. But if he somehow sits and you don't have anybody that can create, I mean, all year long we've talked about Mikal Bridges not having upside. He always checks in the projections. I mean, how many times has he hit upside? If you weighted chalk versus how many times they've paid off, I bet he would be number one in the league for worst plays of the year. Like, he has been horrendous when you base it on his projection and everything, his ownership, everything that comes with it. People continue to play him too, and I just don't get it. But we need to wait on the Cam Thomas news. Obviously, with this being an early game, you're going to get that. And with the way he shoots the ball when he's in, if he's somehow out versus this Washington team, I mean, I have to have interest. Last game, Jalen Wilson started. I mean, if he's 3,400 against Washington and starting, he's like a stone cold lock to me. I will just definitely be playing him. Finney Smith will project decent, but he's not as much of a usage guy as Schroeder. That's why I like Schroeder. I mean, he's going to chuck. Even if Cam Thomas is in, I think Schroeder's a good play. If Cam Thomas is out, I think he's like a lock. And then you go down lower. Lonnie Walker would be a funny flop lag spot just because he was 50% owned the other day, played 9 minutes, 0 for 6, 0 fantasy points. He was one of those ones where everyone in the chat's like, is he playing? Is he injured? And everyone's tilting it. And it actually happened where he finished with a donut. So he'd be a funny, like, if Cam Thomas is out, he'd be a funny flop lag spot because it's against Washington. Who knows what Brooklyn's going to do? Mangone talks a lot about this, where you have no idea what these guys are going to do. They could play Gilliard 30 minutes tonight. You just don't know what they're going to do. So for me right now, until we get more news, Schroeder, one of my favorite plays of the slate. Jalen Wilson, bookmark to see if he starts. If he starts, I like him. Watford too, as the chat's saying. I think you can go to Watford. He's 3,200. I mean, this team is playing Washington. They're cheap. Noah Clowney, any of these cheap guys I'm okay with against Washington. But I want to see Cam Thomas news. I want to see starters and then go with it. Washington, though, I'm not playing any Washington guys. I've tried to make a few things happen. Hasn't worked. I mean, you could play Rashawn Holmes or something, but on a 10-game slate, we're going to have value too. 1,000,000% we're going to have value. I'm not going to play Washington guys more than likely.
Yeah, I think we're going to end up having a lot of unexpected starters on this slate, a lot of kind of, dusty players they have to choose between, cheap players. Like you said, I think there'll be plenty of value to choose from. Now, some of it's definitely going to end up like Lonnie Walker, maybe not a straight goose, but there'll be some probably some bad chalk out there tonight. Obviously, identifying it is easier said than done. Let's move on to the next game. There are 3 games in this early 7 Eastern time window. Cleveland and Charlotte. Cleveland favored by 10.5 in this one. Total sitting around 207. Donovan Mitchell remains out. Dean Wade going to miss another game. Cleveland may get Max Strus back from a 12-game absence. So we'll check on that. Would change things a little bit for Cleveland. And then Charlotte, somehow mostly healthy, at least kind of, relative to what they've had healthy. The guys, the long-term injuries, LaMelo, Curry, Mark Williams, those guys are all out, but they don't have any new injuries. So they're about the only team on the slate that doesn't have anybody questionable or anything like that, which is kind of surprising for Charlotte, but it is the way it is tonight. Like I said, Cleveland favored by 10, 207 total. Back to you, Mangone. What do you got? Cleveland and Charlotte.
Yeah, before we start, you want to say, Steve Boynton, if he could only watch one, MLB opening day or Sweet 16, which one is he peeling to?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't even know what he's gonna respond with.
I think the response is Sweet 16 just because there's a lot of baseball games. But opening day, it's a big day always. Some people are excited about it. Tony, which one is Steve peeling to? Which one do you got?
I know he's going to change undies 3 times. I'll say that much.
Yeah, 1,000%. It's going to be a good day.
Pointing day. His 2 sports, his 2 loves.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. So, figured I would toss that in there. Chat was having fun with it.
Yeah, if he had to choose though, it's got to be Sweet 16. I'm all for opening. He loves college. Like, that dude loves college basketball.
Yeah.
You're not choosing day one over Sweet 16 if you love college.
He can't pass on a chance to watch Zach Edey in the post. I mean, come on.
If Edie's on tomorrow, he's that because he couldn't wait to text me the other day like Edie.
I saw his tweet about Utah State. He was pointing at you. He didn't even at you. He should have just added you on it. So,
yeah.
But no, they play Friday. They play Gonzaga, which I'm excited for since I like Gonzaga. So, but anyways, Cleveland. We're on Cleveland and Charlotte, right?
Yeah.
That one. Yeah. So Cleveland has been frustrating for sure. Garland is in the bucket for me of this guy is just too expensive right now. I have been fading him as of late, and I'm going to continue to fade him. Jared Allen is like a fine last guy in. I don't hate him. It's obviously a good matchup against Charlotte, but not someone I'm prioritizing. The emergence of Evan Mobley back in the lineup with his 20 to 25 minutes restriction, it's enough to kind of mess up the situation. So I'm not excited about him. Max Struss, too, he is upgraded to questionable. There's a chance he plays. That can muddy up the situation. So even though the matchup with Charlotte looks good, it feels more like a fade to me overall because of the prices, guys coming back. Only guy I'd consider is Jared Allen. Charlotte side of the ball, I really haven't played them that much in a while. And a matchup against Cleveland, I'm not that interested in. So, DC, you said I was going to talk about all the players on this slate. I'm good to move past this game and kind of get on to the next one.
Well, I'm glad I needled you a little bit so we didn't have to suffer through you mentioning every player on both rosters here. Big T, over to you, Cleveland and Charlotte.
That is Mangone's favorite movie. Names like 7 players knowing he's not going to play any of them. That's his signature.
Well, people want analysis on them, Tony. If not, I can just say like the couple guys I'm playing and move on. I try to key in on the guys that I really like.
I'm with Mangone in this game, though. I don't really even have – so there's not much injury news in this game. There's full rosters, and like DC keeps saying, there's tons of value going to pop. I'd be stunned if guys don't sit tonight. I mean, the Lakers went double overtime. Yeah. You're going to have spots in other spots, too. It's the end of the year. It's March. It's the end of March on top of that. There's going to be really good plays on this slate. I'm not playing full strength Cleveland, Charlotte with this much value out there. So I'm off this game too.
The reason you don't play Poku, even though he's popping right now, is value's going to open up. It's not going to end up being a good play. By the time we get to lock, he's going to be a bad play.
I'm glad Boyden took a 1 second break from stroking it to tomorrow's slate to let us know how excited he was on the show, and then just canceled out the show. He's apparently gone. Boyden no longer with us.
Comes in and types and then just leaves. Yeah. Had to get back to tape review of tomorrow's game.
All right, let's move on to the last game in the early window. Golden State and Orlando. Orlando favored by 4.5. Figure 218 total. A couple of key players questionable for the Warriors. Trace Jackson Davis and Jonathan Kuminga, both questionable. And then on the Orlando side, mostly healthy. Gary Harris, only player out. Caleb Houston is questionable. He doesn't affect too much. So, yeah, another 2 relatively healthy teams. And honestly, now that we're on the third game in this early window, you might be able to get by for the most part, not playing much from these first 3 games and kind of see what develops in the rest of the slate, especially if we don't have all the news. Mangone, this is another game where I'm not super high on this one either. What do you have for us between the Warriors and the Magic?
Yeah, I mean, for one, like Orlando is not an easy out anymore, right? Like Golden State is going to have to grind for this game. You can see Golden State dig deep into their rotations. I don't want to really play Golden State here. Kuminga is questionable. Of course, if Kuminga missed, could that change some stuff up? Sure, but for now, I'm really off of Golden State. They just play a lot of guys. Second night of a back-to-back. Who knows what they're going to do? Orlando, I think this is an easy fade too. I mean, if we don't get value, could Cole Anthony pop as an option at 4-4? I guess, but I just don't think he's going to be an option in an hour or two. So I'm off of that. But Steve Boyden is here stroking to the games that we have this weekend. So Steve did. He heard us. He was probably just busy on some government.
Well, he didn't answer our question, though. We still don't have an answer to the question. So, Steve, which one are you more excited for? Tomorrow's games or opening day?
You can only pick one to watch, Steve. You got to pick one.
He's picking March Madness, but I want to hear the answer. I want to hear him. I want to look him in the eyes, Tony, and I want to hear what his answer is.
Did you finish this game, Mango? Golden State, Orlando?
There's really nothing to talk about this game. These plays are going to become bad plays when all the other good plays open up. It's just not a good spot.
Well, I know Mangone's got nothing to say about two teams. Big T probably on the same page, but Tony, do you have anything for Magic and Warriors for us?
If Mangone is off a game, then I got to be, because I fade about as many players as anybody. I mean, this is an example, though. I mean, Golden State, we talked about it last night on the show. They need to win to get not only in the play-in, but in the playoffs. I said that backwards, but to even get in the play-in game, they got to win games. So I think they're going to come to play. But their prices are pretty fair, and Orlando plays solid defense, slow tempo. And I know we keep saying the same thing, but there's going to be value on this slate. If no value hit, I could maybe go into this game for some mid-tier plays, but value is going to hit. We know it's going to hit. So I'm just going to say I'm not going to be on this game.
Yeah, here's an example. Isaac looks solid right now at 5 p.m.
I mean, he doesn't even look solid right now to me.
Yeah, I mean,
4K.
You could get away with it, but the point is, so much value is going to open up that all these plays we're discussing, we're wasting our time discussing. I don't think they're going to be good plays. And I think based on the current projections, they're popping right now, and people are reading this information and thinking they're good plays, and they're still going to play them, which is going to make them bad plays when the good plays open up. So I just don't think these early plays that are popping right now are going to be good plays later on, and they're going to get ownership.
Yeah, Isaac coming off season high, I think, and one of his career high games. I don't know if I would chase the Jonathan Isaac. His laugh. What is Mangone yelling about? That's a question I often ask myself, AP.
I'm yelling.
Do you guys think Stevie Boyden's just behind us? Because now he's talking about Edie playing Friday. Is he just 10 minutes behind us?
He's pulling the Mangone. He's 10 minutes behind catching up.
He's commenting 10 minutes behind. So 10 minutes from now, he's going to give us his decision.
AP, I'm also yelling about people playing bad plays. I'm trying to help them out. I'm trying to let them know, do not play Jonathan Isaac.
Why? Yeah, now he said, well, I want to know why is Orlando not a fade tonight, Josh D? Why are they good plays against a Golden State team that needs to win? I don't get it, I guess. They're fine. Josh D in the chat said that it isn't a fade tonight. I don't why are these good plays?
Let me just rattle through the injury report real quick, because I don't think we did that. But let me just rattle through it. So we got Cam Thomas in. We have Trace Jackson, Davis, and Kuminga who are questionable. They could play. But then Alec Burks is questionable in the next game, which isn't a crazy thing. DeJounte Murray's questionable. Ayton's questionable. Grant's doubtful.
You're going through them all, Mangone? You doing my job for me? I just can sign off the showdown, and you take it from here.
Real quick, DC. Oubre, questionable. Caruso, questionable. Cade's questionable, and Ivy's questionable. We have LeBron and Davis off of back-to-back. We have Wemby and Keldon. They're all questionable. We're already missing SGA. Aaron Gordon and Jamal Murray are questionable. We have Beal and Nurkic questionable. You're going to tell me that with all of these events that are going to hit news-wise, you're going to tell me that all these guys are going to get ruled in and all the plays that are currently good plays are going to stay good plays? No, it's just not the case.
All right, Mangone's done yelling. We'll go to the next game, New York and the Toronto Raptors. New York, big favorites here, 13.5 favorites on the road. Total sitting at 212. Obviously, two teams that are pretty banged up. The Knicks will be without Anunoby. They will be without Julius Randle. They will get Mitchell Robinson back, or looks like, from a very long absence. I'm sure his minutes will be very limited, but interested to see how he looks. Obviously, a big piece for them going forward. And in Toronto, a team just devastated by injury, will be without Quickly. Of course, without Scotty Barnes on the long-term season-ending injury. Looks like RJ Barrett going to miss at least one more game tonight. They'll be without Jonte Porter. I don't know if Jonte Porter's coming back to the NBA. I think he might be done. Chris Boucher also out. Jakob Poeltl out as well, of course. Kind of a skeleton crew at this point for the Toronto Raptors, Mangone. Another team that's pretty hard to trust. And, you kind of know where the minutes are going to go for the New York Knicks on a nightly basis. They're always interesting given the minutes that they play every night for Tom Thibodeau. Talk to this Mangone, Knicks and Raptors.
Yeah, this is actually a harder spot. So I know you said that it's a skeleton crew. I don't completely agree because they still have guys they can randomly throw in there. Like, for instance, Kobe Simmons, or Simons, however you say his name, he played 17 minutes the other night. Garrett Temple against Brooklyn, he played 16. They don't have 8 bodies, even though it feels like they have 8 bodies with Olynyk, Gary Trent, Bruce Brown, Agbaji, Dick, Nwora, Freeman Liberty, and Ramsey, where
There you go, man. Going.
Do we lose Sweet Travis?
I think he froze
What
because he
happened?
was talking about these freaking Raptors after we made fun of him. He froze up. He made it 3 games without doing this, and then he froze up because the computer knows. Are you back?
Yeah, I don't know. I froze up. Am I back or am I good?
I think it's laggy, but I hear you at least.
Okay. Well, the point I was getting at is I actually think overall these are not great plays. I think they can make the rotation expand it even further. It's not like it's an 8-man rotation where they're playing the Knicks, not a good matchup. I actually think for the most part, the Raptors are kind of a fade for me. I don't think they're really good plays. When it comes to the Knicks, I think you can make a case for Josh Hart, DiVincenzo, some of these like mid-tier guys that play a pile of minutes, Miles McBride. If Mitch Robinson's back, it would muddy up the situation. But overall, I'm really sticking to maybe Hart, DiVincenzo, and McBride because their minutes have just been insane, and I think their price tag are good. And then the Raptors, not saying they're a full fade, but I think I'm very cautious with them, kind of like the Brooklyn Nets, how I mentioned that.
Let's go to you, Big D. What do you got? Raptors and Knicks.
I do like Mangone getting fired up as he's freezing. Talking about Dick freezing up. I do like that. But
I'll be right back. I'm going to try to fix it.
The Knicks, I don't know. It's a 10-game slate. Hold on. Let me fix this part. 10-game slate. I don't love it because of the price tags. Like Jalen Brunson, I think is a really solid play. If you end up on him, I don't have an issue. Same with Hart. I mean, they're going to play a ton of minutes. DiVincenzo hit 11 threes the other night. 11 threes, 58 fantasy. The last 2 games he went over 50 fantasy. So you can definitely play these guys. I just don't like it as much as some of the other spots. I feel like the prices are somewhat fair. I don't need to go there. 2 prices that like stick out to me just because of where they're priced are Alec Burks and Bojan. And they're just only because they're 3K, 3,100. Oh, bring him back there. You got it. They're only because they're 3K. And like we always, there's a huge difference between 4K and 3K in NBA. It's just massive. And I don't like Alec Burks or Bojan. I don't really think I'll need them because of value will pop up. But if somehow, what in the world is he doing, Mangone? Now he's gone again. Where'd he go? Was he not? What is going on, Mangone? I don't think you'll need it because of the value that pops up. But say it gets to be closer to 7, no values hit, blah, blah, blah. I think you could go to Alec Burks and Bojan just because of that price. And going against Toronto, where Toronto sucks, I wouldn't be shocked if Burks gets you like 20 at 3,100. And I think that play is pretty good. So I don't necessarily care about that. So the chat says Josh Hart. Josh Hart's always a good play. I'm not saying he's not. I mean, the guy plays an absurd amount of minutes. So there's something to be said for that. But he is 7,600 and it's somewhat tricky blowout spot where Toronto sucks. Believe me, I have no issue whatsoever if you play Dante, Hart, Brunson, really any of the Knicks just because of the minutes. So I don't think I'm going to be on it, but I also could end up on it if the value shrinks up.
I think that makes sense with New York. Like, they're all good plays, but maybe not the best plays, depending on what other value we get on the slate. So that makes sense to me with the Knicks. And you said you're not on Toronto.
You wouldn't be shocked at all. Put it that way.
Yeah. I think that makes sense with the Knicks. We'll keep it moving. We'll hope for the return of Sweet Travis. But
circle back to Brooklyn real quick, just because now we got that.
We get
the news we were waiting for, where now we got Cam Thomas versus Washington. I talked about the Washington spot. Is there a better player in the league than Cam Thomas to just throw in there against a team that doesn't defend? I mean, Cam Thomas could go for 60 tonight in this spot with him being in there, just chucking. Like, how does that change your opinion of this game? Like,
I mean, it
you
makes
have
me
to
like Cam
Cam,
Thomas.
right?
And yeah, Cam Thomas, I think, is the best play on Brooklyn. And then pretty much takes me off of everybody else on the Nets, right? Like the dude just, he wants to fill it up and he'll have a chance against a team playing literally no defense in the Wizards. So that makes sense to me on Cam Thomas, but I'm pretty much off of the rest of the Nets at this point. Looks like Travis may be joining us here in a second. Hopefully we'll get him back in. There he is. Travis, welcome back.
Yeah, I think we're good. It was my stuff was on the Wi-Fi and now it's back to direct. I don't know what
I
happened.
think it's because you got that hockey rink behind you that hides half your head.
It could be the case. Well, we can Big T. We can make an adjustment soon. Maybe I'll have an MLB opening day behind me. We'll have to see.
Get a Zach Edey. Get in the Zach Edey box with Boynton. Put Boynton in there. Put Edey in there. Put Ohtani in there.
Only problem is if I put that up there, it won't last long. People will be like, in a week, they'll be like, "Why is that Zach Edey shit up there?" So then I have to make another change.
Especially after he loses on Friday night, they're not going to like it anymore.
Yeah, he is going to lose. It's going to be a fun game. I'm excited. I think the Zags definitely do beat him. But did I miss anything else? Did you guys breeze through the entire slate, DC, since you don't want to talk about all these basketball players?
No, I was hoping you could be on for like 15 minutes more and then we could get out of here early. But you're back, so no such luck for old DC. We'll move on to Portland and Atlanta next. I think a pretty interesting game here. Atlanta, obviously, very banged up in general. Both these teams are. Still missing Okongwu, still missing Jalen Johnson, Sadiq Bey, Trae Young, of course. And then some of the biggest news on the entire slate, DeJounte Murray, questionable to play in this one. Obviously been doing everything for this team after the Trae Young injury and, the other injuries that they've sustained. I think if he's out, Atlanta becomes a very interesting team, especially given that they're playing Portland. They're at home. They're favored by 10.5, 217 total. Portland, of course, going to be without Simons, Brogdon, Shaedon Sharpe. We'll see probably a lot of Scoot Henderson. Jeremy Grant looks like he is doubtful to play. I would be surprised if he was in there. And then DeAndre Ayton, questionable to play. He hasn't played in about a week. I guess I kind of consider him somewhat unlikely too, just given the state of Portland at the moment. We'll have to see on Ayton, but regardless, going to be two shorthanded teams here at the best. And, at the worst, or, obviously depends on how you want to phrase it, but potentially a lot of plays in this game, Mangone. Decent total, should be a decent pace in this game, and potentially a lot of cheap parts that you can play. Break it down for us, Portland and Atlanta.
Yeah. Before I do that, though, Fultz is starting, and he's 3.3K. And I know we talked about not considering that game. Well, that does change things. I do want to mention that for the people that
he hasn't been starting, right? Or is it?
Nah, he hasn't been. He's 3,300. It's a 3,300 starting point guard, right?
He has to be in play then at that price. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, that just shows you how news changes things, though, and that's why we're saying it. Like, I didn't love Orlando, but you get a 3,300 starter like Fultz against Golden State, and that changes a lot in a hurry. So
yeah. So and honestly, we could get even better value than Fultz at all. I just think
probably will.
Yeah. So yeah, and it depends if he's on. I mean, someone said he'll play 15 minutes. We'll see. We'll obviously know.
Even if he does, he's 3,300. Like, I mean, what do you think you're getting for 3,300?
Yeah. So. But, yeah, let's talk about this next game, the Portland and Atlanta game. The DeJounte Murray news is huge. Like, if DeJounte Murray is ruled out for some reason, which I'm expecting him to play, but I don't know what's going to happen. It's ended March in NBA. He is a great play if he's in, and if he's out, there's just a ton of value that would open up on this team. First of all, Bogdanović would just be the guy. You would make a case for one of these other options that starts. I don't know if it'd be Vic Krejci or Trent Forrest at 3-3, but like someone cheap is going to start. Regardless, either Murray's a great spend with all the value we have on this slate, or if Murray's out, Bogdanović is a great play, and so are some other Hawks that are going to pop up. So that is a big piece of news that we are going to have to get news on. And they're playing Portland. Like, it's going to be a big spot. Ayton, I'm expecting he is going to be out, and Grant. And if they are, you got Scoot Henderson at 6.1K. Definitely a good play. I know he got into some foul trouble, and then Banton had a monster game at 6K. Banton almost had 50 DK points at 6K. You can still play him. He'd be a good play. Duop, Reith, Kamara, Walker, and Murray. all those guys would be in play in a matchup against Atlanta. This is one of the possibly best games on the slate, pending how the news hits, but you're going to have to get exposure to this game. This piece of news is what's really going to like kick off the slate. Once we get this news, since at 7:30, we'll probably get it at 6 o'clock Eastern, or at least some of the news that leads into it. Starting lineups is going to be really important in this game. It's one that you're not going to want to just X off. We talked about Xing off some games earlier. This is one you're going to want to get exposure to, and you're going to want to track the news.
Yeah, of course. This is a very, very important game. Big T, who do you think, if DeJounte Murray does sit, they don't have a player, in my opinion, who can like play that role exactly. But who starts for him, and who's their lead ball handler? Krejci, Trent Forrest, I think, are the two guys in question that I guess could do it. You have a lean on who it might be and what their prospects would be, assuming Murray is out.
Yeah, I mean, man, I hope DeJounte just plays because against Portland, I mean, you're going to have to take notice of some of these guys. Like Krejci was on that OKC team, I think, where they just played all bums. I think that was him. Maybe it wasn't. It could have been a different guy, but he's played a crazy amount of minutes lately too. 30+ minutes, 3 straight games. Really, he's got a lot of minutes the last couple weeks. So if somehow DeJounte's out, I mean, Krejci against Portland could play literally 42 minutes or something at 4,200. So I like him way better than Trent Forrest. But again, that goes to the price tag. Krejci's 4,200, Forrest is 3,300. 25% discount, that goes a long way. So I actually think they'd both be very good plays if DeJounte somehow sits. But Krejci, I mean, with these minutes and no other ball handling, obviously Bogdan can handle the ball a little bit. But, I mean, Krejci playing this kind of minutes with no DeJounte would be a near lock for me. I mean, I'm just playing him. So hopefully DeJounte plays because I really don't want to go crazy with Atlanta guys. But, again, you got to wait for the news tonight. Be in the Run Period Discord, all that stuff, because news is going to hit. And there's going to be pivots. And that's why doing a show this early is hard on days like this. Because literally we could do this whole show and then DeJounte gets rolled out. Everything's just different. So all we can do is just plan and then go. And then the Portland side, Scoot Henderson stunk the other night when I played him. He was really bad, 6 for 14, just not very good, 25 minutes, 28 the game before. He's shown upside, though, and Atlanta plays no defense. If DeJounte's out, I think that's a massive bump for Scoot because DeJounte's a decent defender. Those other guys are not going to defend nearly as good. And you never know. Maybe Ayton sits. Maybe who knows? You just don't know with these bad teams. Chris Murray would be a better play. Everybody on Portland would be a better play if DeJounte sits. Banton, I mean, is there a more up and down player than Banton? I mean, he went for 56 again the other night. And on a bad team.
Kind of seems like it's either him or Scoot. It's like one of them takes over, and that's just how it goes that game. So, I don't know if you want to play them together, but I bet one of them goes off.
I think so, too. And, like, literally no one's going to play whoever the bench guy is of the two because they've been mainly starting. Mango knows more of this than me, but I think they've only been starting one of them. And whoever starts is who people play. So don't be scared in tournaments to play the bench guy, especially if DeJounte's out. I mean, Banton has some nuke games. So these guys just have to be in play. But we got to bookmark the DeJounte news and wait for it, basically.
Scoot's an idiot, too. He got 3 fouls in literally 1 minute the other day. It was the second quarter. With I think 7 minutes left, he had 0 fouls, and dude got 3 in a minute. He's literally a moron, and he's playing Atlanta, high-paced team where fouls happen a lot. Like, it's definitely a great spot for Banton. I think he could absolutely just nuke in this spot.
Yeah, I kind of like the zigzag theory on those two, though. Take the guy who didn't go off last game because it just feels like it could go either way on any given night. That's Portland and Atlanta, obviously a very, very important game, one that you're going to need the news. Of course, our guys will be breaking all that down in the Discord. We got Up to Lock show coming up, talking about all the news that you're going to need for Portland and Atlanta. We'll keep it going. There is one more game here in the 7:30 Eastern time window, and then 4 more games to talk about that start at 8 Eastern time. Last game here, though, is the Clippers and the Philadelphia 76ers. Clippers favored by 6.5 here. Another case of two somewhat healthy teams. It looks like the Clippers should have all their guys in there. Harden, Westbrook, Kawhi, Paul George, all going to be in there tonight, at least as of now. And then the news for Philly that we're waiting on is Kelly Oubre. They'll be without DeAnthony Melton, of course, without Joel Embiid, Covington. But, at least relative to most teams, these teams should have their guys healthy outside of Joel Embiid. We'll start with you again, Mangone, Clippers and 76ers. What do you see here?
Yeah, Clippers will be pretty easy to discuss. Like, if you got like Kawhi and Harden and Paul George a little bit in tournaments, like if I had a splash from would I exit? No, but on a main team, I would not be playing them. The Clippers are just an easy fade. They're just way too crowded right now. Philadelphia, they could be missing Kelly Oubre. If they are missing Kelly Oubre, then I think a discussion between Maxey and Harris is interesting. I think clearly a lot of usage will go their way. Buddy Hield, I do not trust even if he gets minutes, so I think he is a bad play. Kyle Lowry, I have been going well under on him and basically fading him in spots. Same with Mo Bamba. For me, it's really, this game is only, hey, if Kelly Oubre is out, I'm going to consider Maxey or Harris as a pretty good option, but I'm good to move on from this game. I just think it's one of the worst games on the slate. The Kelly Oubre news does matter, though, because I think it can help usage-wise for Tobias Harris and for Tyrese Maxey.
Jake Swales, the loyal show watcher, often coming up with good nuggets. And I did look it up. This does appear to be true. Scoot is from the Atlanta area. I think that's worth something on a team with absolutely nothing to play for, a guy who's going to have the ball in his hands. I mean, you might be trying to impress some people in the crowd. So I do think that's a little bit interesting on Scoot Henderson. Big T, your thoughts here on the Clippers and the 76ers?
Yeah, I'm going to help us out and say nothing in this game. I think this is one of the worst fantasy games of the night for sure.
All right, we'll keep it moving to the 8 p.m. window, the Lakers and the Memphis Grizzlies. Up first to discuss here, Lakers a tough team to break down. We know LeBron James has missed, one or two games? I think just the last played on the 24th. He's questionable. And then Anthony Davis played, 52 minutes? 52 minutes against the Bucks yesterday. I mean, kind of think he's going to sit, but also the Lakers need to win games. So I'm not quite sure what they will decide to do with Anthony Davis. The Lakers will be without Gabe Vincent, Jared Vanderbilt. Looks like Cam Reddish will be in there, but obviously Anthony Davis, LeBron James, the big two. And I wouldn't be shocked if they both ended up sitting, which would make the Lakers, especially against this horrible Grizzlies team, a very, very interesting team. The Grizzlies, as usual, are just down kind of their whole team. Looks like Desmond Bane will be in there tonight. Jaren Jackson Jr. as well. So I guess, compared to many nights, relatively healthy. We'll be without Vince Williams, Watanabe, Marcus Smart, Conchar, Luke Kennard, all getting a sit, possibly getting Brandon Clark back. Obviously, Mangone, the big news to wait on here is the superstars from the Lakers, Anthony Davis, LeBron James. If one or both sits, that really changes things for the Lakers. So talk to us what you're doing, what you're prioritizing. Are you keeping spots open in case those guys do sit out? Go ahead, Mangone, Lakers and Grizzlies.
Yeah, we also did just get some news that came in on the Kuminga stuff. So again, news is going to fly today, right? This is why we talk about it a ton. I think AD has a good chance of sitting compared to LeBron, just because he played the other night. 52 minutes is a lot, and kind of think that just with LeBron, it could be pretty easy to beat Memphis. I know Memphis is a little bit better with some of the guys they have now, but Memphis is not as good of a team. Also, I looked at the Lakers schedule just because I was curious, because I think this matters a little bit down the stretch. They stole that game against the Bucks last night. Their schedule is really easy to close this out. Memphis, Indiana, Brooklyn, Toronto, Washington, Cleveland, Minnesota, Golden State, which that'll be a huge game, Memphis and New Orleans. I think this is not a bad rest spot off the back-to-back, and it was off the overtime as well. So I think AD could sit, and that'll open up a ton of value if possible. And we'd obviously want to like these guys. Memphis, I think as a contrarian spend, I think Desmond Bane at 7.9K could be an interesting play. I know that we have doubtful on Vince Williams Jr. I'm not super excited about like the Scottie Pippins, the Jacksons, and the Aldamas because Jaren Jackson Jr. and Bane are out. I'd really only be looking at Jaren Jackson Jr. or Bane as contrarian spends. And then I'm hoping we get some Lakers value opening up with AD out. That's kind of how I'm playing it. But good news is we'll probably have the updates in time to be able to help make some of these decisions.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. What about you, Big T? Lakers and Grizzlies, what do you got?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be an interesting spot. I feel pretty confident AD sits. I mean, he played a ton of minutes, and he was limping around the whole overtimes, even though he was totally crushing. AD's got to be one of the funniest players because he is either the best player in the world or just disappears. Like, the dude was amazing last night. He was amazing on defense, amazing on offense, hit threes. He was so freaking good. You watch him like that, and you're like, how does he not do that every night?
He's got to be so damn tired today, though. 52 minutes of that, like,
gotta be. And like Mangone said, the schedule's easy, and it seems like they need to win games, which they do. I'm not saying they don't, but they're 2 games behind the 8 seed and 2.5 games up of the 10 seed. So they're kind of in that no man's land where they can afford to sit a guy here and there. I'm not saying for sure AD will sit because they do obviously want to win and try to get up in the 8 or the 9, 7 and 8 to where they can get 2 chances to get in. But still, I think AD sits. I wouldn't be totally stunned if they sat both of them and let D'Lo and Reeves. That's when the slate really gets interesting, when stuff like that happens and they just sit both of them or something, because then you can't get around playing D'Lo and Austin Reeves and Rui and all the Lakers. I mean, what if somehow what if they just both sat versus Memphis? The Lakers are literally the best plays on the slate if that happens.
I mean, Jackson Hayes, I think, would smash in that scenario.
Smash. And I think Jackson Hayes is a pretty good play now just because he's going to be totally unowned. The problem with him is you're totally screwed if AD plays, but you can pivot. You just pivot off to a different spot.
The only thing I'll say, Tony, is Dave McMenamin came out earlier. I did see this tweet that he's expected to be available tonight from like an actual no LeBron. Like LeBron, like they didn't expect.
I think he plays too. Because you saw him on the bench last night. He's out there arguing with the refs and coaching. I mean, he's fine. It was a normal night off.
But it seems like this is a great spot. Like you and I are definitely in agreement on this. 80 sits because of the double overtime, and they could steal this game with just LeBron. They don't. And honestly, Spencer Dinwiddie's playing really good basketball right now, and the Memphis Grizzlies are a great team to play LeBron at the 4 and 5 for a little bit. Like this is a great spot that they can easily do that. I think it's a no-brainer, but and again, even if AD does play, we have tons of other value that could open up. So I think we're fine, but you and I are in agreement on that, Tony. Are you in agreement, DC, that 80 sits?
I think it's most likely. I mean, that's just a huge amount of minutes for a guy who, likes to kind of sit out games and go to the locker room and all that stuff. So I'd be surprised if he played, especially if LeBron can go, right? I think the most likely thing is one or the other plays and kind of carries the team tonight. And I think it is more likely LeBron than Anthony Davis personally. Anything else? Lakers and Memphis. I think we covered that one.
I do think you can. So the Lakers are going to be a tired team. I mean, they played a ton of minutes. I think you can pick and choose some Memphis spots, like Scottie Pippen Jr. He's 5,200. His role is kind of stabilized, mid to high 20s minutes. And if AD is out, their defense is significantly worse. Like he's all their rim protection. He's their best defender. He's a hybrid defender. I think these Memphis guys, only if AD sits. If AD was in, I would definitely pivot off of these guys. But I guess mainly Scottie Pippen, Gigi Jackson, Jaren, Bane, those 4. Even this Giroux dude has played 20 minutes 2 of the last 3 games. I think you can play these guys versus the Lakers without AD because Jackson Hayes could have a good game, but without AD in there, I mean, Jackson Hayes is a terrible defender. He is really bad on defense. So, and yeah, AP's in the chat saying Scottie Pippen Jr. I think he's a pretty good play. With Memphis, you definitely, like we saw when we were all at the Run Pure party, got to check starters. Make sure it's not like Jordan Goodwin starting or something weird. You got to make sure what they're doing. But Scottie Pippen, I think, is a pretty good contrarian play.
Yeah, I don't mind that call from AP at all. We'll see how the news breaks down, and of course, yeah, gotta be following the starters, especially with the Memphis Grizzlies. We'll go to another interesting game: Houston and OKC. Houston coming on strong the second half of the season, trying to get into the playoffs and keeping it going despite losing arguably their best player in Alperen Sengun. We've seen Jalen Green just nuking lately, kind of out of nowhere. He's been amazing. Looks like Houston outside of Sengun should be mostly healthy for this one, I believe. And then on the OKC side of the ball, one of the bigger talking points, injuries of the slate, is, of course, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander going to sit this one out. He has not missed very many games this year, so we really haven't seen OKC very often without, their clear best player, their clear leader. Going to be interesting to see what they do. I think the kind of, most likely or obvious, whatever you want to call it, thing is that Josh Giddey takes on a bigger role here in the absence of SGA. I'm not allowed to talk about Josh Giddey, so we're going to throw it right to you, Mangone. How do you feel about OKC and Houston?
Yeah, I think this is an interesting situation. So when Shai Gilgeous-Alexander sits, they don't actually have a real natural backup point guard to just throw in there. It's mainly the guys that are basically like starters are going to just gain a ton of usage. So it's going to be Josh Giddey and Jalen Williams gaining all that usage and just running the show. I think it's not a bad spot for Isaiah Joe off the bench. Casey Wallace will likely be a starter that he's okay, but he's not going to just randomly go into the SGA type of role. Let's just at least be frank with that. I think the three guys I'm looking at are mainly Josh Giddey, Chet Holmgren, Jalen Williams, all fantastic plays that I think just get really big bumps. Then Casey Wallace and Isaiah Joe, not bad value plays, but as we look at the slate and as we gain value, I think those are values that I will get off of for the values that open up. Houston side of the ball, I know everyone's talking about how Jalen Green has 3 children and, the child sport's coming. He has been balling. The guy is absolutely just going off right now. I think it's not a bad spot for him, but he is 8.9K. Like, you can make a case there's better spends. I'm going to be a little cautious with the Jalen Green price tag right now. Amen Thompson at 7K, it does feel a little pricey to me. I know Jock Landale has been absolutely crushing. At 5.4, I still think he's in the conversation. And then, again, Houston, not a team I want to load up on, but I really like these OKC options, and it's worth mentioning that because we're playing a lot of OKC tonight, we have a lot of opportunities to make pivots with the news that's going to come. So don't be afraid to get off some of these OKC guys. They could be overowned versus some of the values that we have later on.
Makes sense there. Big T, obviously another important game here. What do you see between Houston and OKC?
Yeah, some of the clear spots of the night, just because we know SGA's out already. Houston matchup's pretty good. And these mid-rangers are just really good plays. I mean, Jalen Williams is going to be more of the creator than anyone, I would say, in this offense. He's going to be very aggressive. Might not play full point guard, but the ball's going to be in his hands a ton. Super underpriced. I have to like him. Chet's got a ton of upside. I don't think people are fully, even the projections, monetizing how much boost these guys get. I think the projections should be even higher than they are. And I think Giddey's going to be the highest of the three, but I think Jalen Williams and Chet should be projected much higher than they are. Closer to, I would even go as far as to say closer to the 50 mark. I think they're just really, really good plays tonight against Houston. And then Giddey, I think Giddey's a solid play. I still don't fully think he gets a massive bump in minutes, even with SGA out. I think it boosts Jalen and Chet the most. And then you got Casey Wallace and Dort. I think they're both in play. I don't think they're incredible plays. And when value hits, I don't think you need to go there. But they're if I landed on Casey Wallace, I'm okay with that. 4K against Houston. I like OKC a ton. Everyone likes OKC a ton. I think one way of being different is to play Jalen Williams and Chet together. I don't think hardly anybody's going to do that. Just looking at roster construction, I think you got safety. I think you got upside, and I think it's pretty low owned because the people that go here are going to like Cason Wallace and Giddey, I think, at a higher ownership than Jalen and Chet, at least from my numbers when I run things. So I love OKC. I don't necessarily like Houston all that much. Doubt I really go there. I'm going to focus on the teams that are shorthanded tonight. And SGA, I mean, he has to open up as much usage as anyone in the league. He does everything for that team. So I'm going to be very high on OKC. And little chop, what is the deal with Isaiah Hardenstein tonight? Why? I mean, what are we doing with him? Why are we so excited about him? Isn't the big dude coming back tonight? That doesn't matter.
Mitchell Robinson is questionable. He could play. He cannot play. But I don't think it's a good play.
I don't get it.
Big T, you mentioned playing Jalen Williams and Chet on the same team. Think you can play all three, Giddey, Williams, and Chet on one team? Is that too much?
I think you can, but on this slate, I just think there's going to be too much upside out there. And the thing I like about Jalen and Chet is I think, like I said, I think they can both get 50 plus. If they both get 50 plus, I have a hard time seeing Giddey get 40 plus. But I think you could do a rule even 2 of those 3. I mean, if you played Giddey and Chet, Giddey and Jalen, I think 3 might be too much. But
the one thing I'd say when you take, when you run the numbers with SGA and Micic off the court, like you got a 26% assist percentage for both Jalen and Giddey, and then Holmgren is involved facilitating offense too. So you could see a bunch of of them assisting each other. So I do kind of like that.
Definitely talk me into all 3. I always like stuff. You're getting all the usage with the 3 of them.
Yeah, and their minutes are kind of tied together, I think, a little bit as well. Obviously, in a close game, I think all of them play a bunch of minutes. So I kind of like the OKC guys, maybe fill in the value around them. Mangone, you have opinion on how many Thunder is too many playing the 3 studs together? Any thoughts there, Mangone?
So, it's not 3. I don't think it's 3 studs because, Josh Giddey's price isn't a stud price tag, right? Even Jalen Williams, he's a mid-tier guy. So
yeah, it's an average of 6,800 for the 3. It's not that much.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I think you can get away with it if you really want to. Yeah. The one thing I'd counter with is I think you maybe want someone from Houston in there just because you think the game's going to interact and be a very high-scoring game. But I don't think it's a necessity for sure, but I think you can get away with it. And I agree a lot with Tony's rankings. For me, it's Jalen Williams 1, Holmgren 2, and then Giddey 3, mainly because I don't think Giddey just slides into being the point guard. There's a chance Giddey still plays 25 minutes. They are just very cautious with his minutes. We know Jalen and Chet's minutes are going to be really good and strong. So I feel kind of confident in that.
All right. 2 more games to get to. Indiana and Chicago up next here. 235 total. I believe the highest total on the slate. Indiana favored by 2.5. Looks like DeSumo is going to be in there. Looks like there was kind of some conflicting news going on, but I believe he is probable to play at this point. Alex Caruso is the piece of Chicago news that we're waiting on. He's questionable to play. And then on the Indiana side, TJ McConnell, Aaron Nesmith are questionable. Some other guys too, but not super relevant to this slate. Really high total here, Mangone. So the game environment should be very good, but kind of the Caruso news, I think, affects a lot on really both sides of the ball. What do you see between the Pacers and the Bulls?
Yeah, I thought someone said in the chat we got some news on this game. Was it the Io DeSumo news?
Yeah, looks like he's going to be in there, though.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure. I want to make sure I didn't misread it. So, definitely not a game to ignore. Halliburton is definitely someone I'm going to probably be cautious with today. I know people are waiting for it to pop, but there's other studs I'd just rather get to. There's a lot of them on this slate. Nikola Vucevic, I think he's not bad against Indiana. We know what his upside can be. Indiana struggles against centers. I don't think he is a bad option. The case for DeRozan is the usage has been really good. He's playing 40 minutes a night. Indiana's an up-and-pace game, and I always feel like spending up at forward is never a bad thing, especially when we gain a lot of center and guard value that we don't expect. So I don't think DeRozan is the worst idea. I don't love Kobe White, DeSumo, and some of these other guys. Miles Turner at center, I don't totally hate, but that's really it. I'm going to really be a little I'm going to pick and choose with these guys. I don't want to game stack this one just because I don't see a lot of value to play where it's mainly just looking at studs and sprinkling them in throughout my lineups. That's kind of how I'm handling this game. It's not one to completely cross off. It's not one that I think value is going to open up on, but I think there are some really good stud options that at the end of the night, you could see get 50 to 60 DK points and just be on the winner at lower ownership.
Yeah, let's go to you, Big T, Pacers and Bulls.
I mean, just looking through it, like you can play DeRozan, you can play Kobe White. I just am not going to be that high on these spots. I mean, there's just good spots tonight. And the way I play NBA is I just try to attack those good spots, maybe get low owned in one spot. The Indiana games have killed me all year. Every time I go in on Indiana, just something bad happens. They play so many guys. The Bulls, too, I don't love. So I'm just going to say I am off this game.
All right. No Pacers or Bulls for Big T. Let's get to our last game of the night. We'll do plays of the day after this. Hit the like button if you haven't done so. It does help us out. And if you do want to join the winners over at Run for Your Sports, you can use promo code RPS15 for 15% off your first monthly or weekly payment. We'll close it out here with Detroit and the Minnesota Timberwolves. Wolves favored by 15.5, 216 total. A lot of news coming for this game as well. Both Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey are questionable to play for Detroit. Hard to know what the Pistons are going to do on a night-to-night basis. Looks like Jalen Duren will return. They'll also be without Fontecchio and Quentin Grimes will the Pistons. And then big news to wait for on the Minnesota side of the ball as well. Both Rudy Gobert and Anthony Edwards questionable to play. Obviously, the Wolves still without Karl Anthony Towns. I would guess that both Edwards and Gobert are on the more probable side of the questionable tag. But again, you never know. And just guessing at that. We'll start with you, Mangone. Could be a potentially very important last game of the night here. What do you have for us, Pistons and Timberwolves?
Yeah, I will say I'm under the assumption that I think Ant will play, right? I feel pretty confident in that, and I think
he'll play. Yep.
Yeah, but the Pistons stuff is really interesting because if they are missing Cade Cunningham and Ivy, like it's just massive news because then you have Sasser, you have Malachi Flynn, who are cheap values. Then they have Evan Fournier. Like they're just so shorthanded that these guys are just gonna play, and they're going to be low-owned values. I'm not saying I'm backloading for it for sure, but we're gonna have open slots. Now, keep in mind, if one of your open slots is Jalen Williams or Chet Holmgren, those guys might be locked onto your teams already because you don't want to get off them, right? So that's something to think about when building out your lineups and why I don't want to lock into some of these awful plays on Charlotte and such. So I don't know who's in and out for Detroit, but I know that Detroit has the potential to have a ton of value that we're not expecting. And Alex mentioned too, Buddy Boeheim's a guy that could randomly start playing a shit ton of minutes. I know I joked about Grady Dick being 7K soon, DC, but some of these like Detroit guys could soon be like 5 or 6K because they might just become starting point guards for the rest of the season. We don't know, but this could happen. Like Cade Cunningham could easily get shut down in a week or two and just be done for the entire season. They have nothing to play for. Why would they risk him tearing his ACL and ruining his next season? There's just no point. So Detroit has some value opening up, I think. I don't know who the value is going to be, but you need to keep your eyes on this game. The key thing I'm looking at is that's an 8 o'clock Eastern game. What's the injury report going to say at 6:30 on that game when the coach comes out to give the press conference? We know we love the press conferences, right? They're going to talk about who's going to be in, who's going to be out. We'll see what Monty Williams says, but I think value will be open here. Rudy Gobert, I actually think is a really interesting contrarian center spend that if you thought Detroit was going to play all their guys, let's say Cade got ruled in early. Well, Rudy, if he gets the full 40 minutes, he's going to absolutely torch this team. I definitely prefer Chet Holmgren to him, but I would not ignore him. I wouldn't ignore Ant. These guys always like to play and they play their minutes. But yeah, I think that's how I'm really considering this game. I want to see what happens at 6:30 with these Detroit guys because I really think a lot of value could open up on Detroit. Now, I could also see myself Xing off Detroit if I get really good value like AD sits and LeBron and all these other guys that we've talked about. But getting this piece of news at 6:30 is really valuable information to me.
Yeah, potential value plays. I think especially the Detroit guards, Sasser, and potentially Malachi Flynn as well, depending if both Ivy and Cunningham are out. And then, I think on the Minnesota side, Naz Reid, if Gobert does sit, could be an amazing play at 6,800 in this one. Big T, your thoughts here, Minnesota and Detroit?
Yeah, another pretty annoying game with the injuries where, Detroit's a bad team, huge dog. But when Cade, Ivy, Sasser, who knows who ends up sitting for Detroit. When these guys sit, you just have a lot of options of guys you can play. The hard part's going to be you're going to have to wait. But Mango brought up a good point that you can kind of play some OKC guys, play some Lakers. You could even do a team with all 8 o'clock guys and just literally wait on the news and see who starts. Build the best team. Just pretend it's a 4-game, 8 o'clock slate. I've seen a ton of success with stuff like that. It's hard to go in there and fade all the early stuff. It is. It's hard for anyone. Just pretend it doesn't exist. And then you can pivot based on all the news, because we've seen it multiple times this year. When all the news hits right, these late games are going to crush.
You're going to at worst, you're going to be able to build a solid 8 p.m. only team, right? At the very worst, even if the news goes against you.
And you can win with that.
the way I've tried to teach people this, and I think it's such an important thing, is just all you have to do is X out all the early games and run something with an optimizer if you're using one. I can easily do it right now, and we can talk about the team if you want. I don't know if it's a good exercise to go through. Tony, talk about this game, and then DC, come back to me. I'll just X them all out, and we'll see what it gets, and we'll kind of discuss it, because I think it's interesting.
I do that just to register for my teams anyways, because I want all late guys. You never know what we do these shows. You never know what happens, and you just don't turn your team in at 7 o'clock. So I do it just to have my teams in with late guys. So, I don't see a ton here in this game, but again, I can't even evaluate this game until we see who's in and out, because if Ant and Gobert sit, Naz Reid would be the best play on the slate. Right. Naz Reid might be a great play anyways, because, when those two sit, Naz Reid will legitimately score 50 plus. The problem is he's 7K now, 6,800. So if they do play, you're going to have to pivot. You can't play them at 6,800 if those guys are in, especially Gobert. But if they sit, and this is where you kind of get burned by late swap. Say you play a bunch of early guys and you just aren't able to pivot onto the late news. It's really hard, because you're going to, Naz Reid is going to crush. There's no way around it. And same with the Detroit guys. They're bad guys, but just pretend Cade and Ivy and Sasser all sit. These guys are going to – Malachi Flynn would be an incredible play at 3,700. Troy Brown might be a good play anyways. Matu. These guys are just good plays. So this is where the gambling comes into it. And, Nall would be a great play. All of Minnesota is going to be very, very much better plays if Ant sits. And we have all these weird 3K guys that you can play. If those guys sit, even like a Monte Morris at 3,300 could be your pivot off. Say you don't play the early guys like we said, so you're not playing our dude Fultz from Orlando. That would be your pivot, Monte Morris, and that sounds stupid right now. I get that. You're not playing Monte Morris over Fultz, but all of a sudden when those guys sit and your pivot is Monte Morris and Naz Reid and Slow-Mo and all these guys, you're going to crush, and they're going to be lower owned because of it.
Mango, what'd you find for your late slate only optimizer?
Yeah, it's not the greatest teams in the world, but they're not that bad. The first team I got, we got 4 OKC options,
Is this including the, Gobert out, Ant out?
No, I don't have these guys as out. Everyone's just in, right? It's normal projections right now. And this team gives you 4 OKC guys, 4 OKC. 2 of them are values. I won't say who they are. And then there's 2 other options that are the studs that we talked about. And here's the other 4 options you get.
Why are you not saying who they are?
I can say them. I just thought the DK. But I'll list it. I'll just say it. So you get Cason Wallace, Isaiah Joe, Jalen Williams, and Josh Giddey. You could easily get away with that for sure on this slate.
Easily.
And your other 4 options are Scottie Pippen Jr., who Tony talked up, Miles Turner against Nikola Vucevic, who's a terrible defender. Anthony Davis. No one's ever going to complain about him. He could turn into LeBron. He could turn into any stud. And Kobe White, who isn't the worst spend up option. He's probably going to play like 35 to 40 minutes. So the point I'm getting at is that's a team you can look at the end of the night that feels like it looks weird, but like you would be like, I understand how that team won. Of course, it's not my favorite team on the slate, but it leaves you the potential to open up all this value later on that other people can't unlock and build teams that other people can't get to. And again, that's just the number one team that I found with some of the rules that I set. And there's probably better teams if you sift through it. It took me 5 seconds to do this.
Yeah. A big slate, of course. A lot of news to come. And the up to lock guys, I believe it's JSU, Holden, and JBC breaking all that down momentarily as soon as we get off the air. Let's do our plays of the day. Then we'll get on out of here. We'll start with you, Travis, your play of the day.
Yeah. I forget who I had. Go to Tony real quick. Sorry. I forget who I had in my play.
Travis is passing. Big T, you got a play of the day for me?
My play of the day is going to be Cam Thomas. I think he's popular, but I don't care today because there's going to be a million plays people can play, million different ways to go by the time. I just think this dude versus Washington is going to shoot the ball 30 times, and if he gets hot, he's going to have 60 fantasy points. He's going to absolutely smash. And I know I talked about Minnesota, but I just want to harp on how key it is. And just because the dude in chat said the rumor is those guys sit. If Conley, Edwards, Rudy sit, I mean, I don't know how else to say it, but you're going to need a lot of Minnesota. So the way I'm going to construct my teams tonight, I'm going to play a few early guys, the ones I really like, Fultz, maybe like whoever you like, Paulo or Cam Thomas or these guys. And I'm going to backload 4 or 5, 6 guys. And you got OKC, just like Mangone said. If worse comes to worse and I have to play even 5 OKC, I'm okay with that. I like OKC guys. But I cannot live with myself if these guys from Minnesota are out and I don't get to play Naz Reid versus Detroit. I can't live with that. I have to be able to play these Minnesota guys versus Detroit. And I'll just pivot. I will adjust if I have to. It's that simple. So play of the day, Cam. But my ultimate play of the day is wait on these Minnesota guys and just hope the news breaks our way.
I'll be taking a similar strategy as well. I'll be backloading, and seeing what happens with the news as we progress through the night. Mangone, did you find a play of the day for us?
Yes, I do. And it's a backloaded guy. So that way, if you want to make some changes, you certainly can. Let's say news doesn't hit our way. I still think DeMar DeRozan is a really good play. The dude plays 36 to 40 minutes a night. He gets to play the Indiana matchup. I think DeMar DeRozan is definitely in play. And listen, I know the Bulls suck, but the Bulls are still fighting. They're in the play-in game. Like some of these teams, we do think they're terrible, but they are still playing for something. DeRozan is definitely a good play for me as a contrarian spend at small forward. And I could open up and just get the absolute nuts with, like you guys said, Timberwolves guys being out or some other options. So, and AP, that's fine. Slide in for a little lunch bet if you got an option that's better. So I'll happily take some action from you, AP. Slide on in.
AP does not approve of DeMar DeRozan play of the day. My play of the day, a guy I think is capable of a lot more, but playing alongside SGA doesn't always get to show it. Jalen Williams, he'll be popular. I just think he's absolutely going to smash against Houston. The mom's basement play of the day, Jalen Williams. That's a wrap for this show. We got Up to Lock coming up. And more importantly, we got the first baseball show opening day tomorrow, 2 Eastern time. It is free for the people. Hopefully we'll see a bunch of you guys in there. I'll be there. And I think Big T will be joining me at 2 Eastern time tomorrow talking baseball. Cannot wait for that. Thanks for watching as always. For Big T, for Mangone, I'm DC, and we're out of here.